Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our last bit of coverage from the Texas UFO Conference here in Jefferson, Texas. We have the great pleasure of being joined by Jay Michael. He is the producer of numerous documentaries, as well as narrator, and also the host of the Jay Michael Show. Welcome back.
Well, welcome, and thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Always a pleasure, man. You were just up there speaking just a little while ago. Tell us a little bit about the presentation that you were given today.
Well, what I did was I talked about some of my own personal experiences, things that have happened with me, and then I went into what I call Rise of the UAP, which is everything that's happened like in the last 10 years with the government and all the acronyms and all the different departments they've come up with and what they may be coming to a conclusion of. And that is, I think, that they may be realizing that this isn't all a scientific thing. It may also be a paranormal thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they know how to quantify that.
No.
Don't know how to deal with it.
And you know, that is a lot of what we get into with Curious Research regularly whenever I'm on shows is the marriage of science and paranormal, and that bridge that's literally happening right now. The example that I normally give is quantum entanglement winning the Nobel Peace Prize, and the idea that, yes, that really confirms a lot of what people like Hal Puthoff were talking about when they started sciences like remote viewing,
right?
You know, things like that. And yeah, we are rapidly learning with quantum sciences, quantum realm, that these things are all vibrationally connected.
Yes. Yeah. And I also think that from my point of view is I think there may actually be two different things happening here. One is the nuts and bolts flying saucers that people see, and occasionally they land, they abduct somebody or something like that. And then there is this supernatural element, this paranormal aspect to it.
Yeah.
And we're kind of putting all of our cookies in one basket when we really need to go into that basket and say, okay, this is different from this.
Yes.
And they don't always gel.
Yeah.
And if we try to force the phenomenon into a specific, it's a square peg in the round hole, you know?
Yeah.
You're trying to force it in there, and you're trying to say, well, this is a scientific thing, therefore it's impossible and it can't happen. Well, no, it can't.
Yeah, well, it's a combination of two problems. Number one, as the world of paranormal, everything has been thrown into a Kleenex box.
Right.
Of paranormal or UFO, what have you. The problem is, science understands that, well, there's 1,000 different products called facial tissue. So they aren't going to look at just a box of Kleenex when there's a whole bunch of different categorizations of things scientifically. So we have to basically start speaking their language. And you know, I get a lot of flack in a lot of communities for being a fan of the relabel to UAP. I'm a fan of that because it removes it immediately from the Kleenex box.
Yeah.
You know,
and you know, that in itself, unidentified flying object became unidentified aerial phenomenon. Yeah. So they're getting away from this idea maybe that these are objects, physical objects, possibly from other planets or from some foreign country or whatever. And now we're saying, well, this is a phenomenon. Yeah. You know, it is an anomalous phenomenon.
And I quite literally, on my reference shelf, have an entire reference section that is papers from the 1800s, late 1700s on, like from when science as we know it first began to now. That is a reference of phenomena. It's pretty remarkable. Like, this was a desk reference at one point where it was like, here's anomalous things that happen in nature, ball lightning, stuff like that, things that go back way
I mean,
far.
You know, a century or so ago, if you said rocks fell out of the sky, they would look at you like, oh, you are crazy. But now we know meteors do.
Well, sure. Yeah. And, you know, the example that I make regularly is that, especially with Curious Research, it's the idea that as soon as you have observed something, you are taking part in science.
Right.
Like that is quite literally the first part of the scientific process is observation. So even if you had an anomalous experience, as the observer, you have begun the scientific process, just as the observer.
Yeah. Exactly. And also another aspect of this is all of this recent interest in it by the government negates anything that happened before. They don't go back to the early 1900s and some of the sightings and things, and they don't go all the way back to the pyramids or anything like that.
Sure.
They completely negate all of that data and all that information and only look at the last 20 years or so, and they say, well, we can't fit this into our box, therefore there's no box. There's nothing to it, you know. There's no extraterrestrial life. Extraterrestrial simply means it's not on Earth.
That's right.
Yeah, it could be coming from a spirit realm.
It could be coming from another Earth.
It could be coming from a parallel Earth.
Absolutely.
You know, there's any number of possibilities once you break that mold and you say, I'm going to think outside the box now.
Yeah, and I mean, even last year at MUFON Symposium in Canton, Ohio, we interviewed Dr. Michael P. Masters. I love his work. He's absolutely amazing. He is a anthropologist by trade and has kind of projected out humanity. And if you look at the evolution of humanity from what we know from the partial skeletons that are there and cranial size and project that out by 10,000 years, well, we kind of start looking a little gray. And we kind of shrink down and the head becomes bigger. So what if it's the fact, especially when you look at abduction experiences with people who have met the Greys, things like that, they seem to be very concerned with our safety, our use of nuclear power, what we've done genetically. Maybe it's us from the future coming and trying to reverse engineer what happened to us so that we can figure out how to save our society. I agree. It's an interesting hypothesis.
I think it's an interesting hypothesis, but for me, there is no such thing as time travel. And here's the reason why. The only time that exists is right now.
Bring it in.
You can't go into the future because there's nothing there. You can't go back in the past because it's already happened. You might find the construction of the pyramids being built, but there would be no people because those people have now evolved on. And they've translated, they've died, they've become other people. You would have to take time as we know it now.
That's right.
And move it all the way back 2,000 years. And if you did that, you would shift the entire universe back 2,000 years. You can't do it for just one planet.
That's it. Yes, exactly.
Bingo.
And it's the fact that
that's it.
Among everything in physics, the one thing that is malleable is time. It's not a constant because we came up with it. Like time on Pluto is not the same as it is here. We have to have different clocks to accurately tell time on the moon. Than on Earth. It's a totally different time because of gravity and
you take a clock and you fling it around the sun 3 or 4 times and you bring it back. It's wrong.
It's
different now.
Precisely. So, the idea of time travel in and of itself is a conundrum.
So I don't think it's us from the future unless we've somehow nicked that. But at the same time, we think, well, there's no way they can come here because the distances are great and there's no way they can travel faster than the speed of light. And they would have to in order to get here from another solar system. Well, just because we can't travel faster than the speed of light doesn't mean they can't. And if they are 1,000 or 2,000 years more advanced than us in their thinking, they may have licked that problem too.
We're applying our application of physics as we know it.
Bingo. That's it. We assume.
Exactly.
We assume based on what we know currently. Someone from the 1800s whose science at that time was at that level would assume something completely different. Because based on what he knows up to that point, even what we have now would be impossible. This would be impossible because you can talk into a little box to your friend in another country in real time. That can't happen because at the time, no, they couldn't see all of the advances that took place to get to the point where we have this. So, we don't know. And I think that is the most important part of all of this. Being able to say, I don't know. I don't know.
And you know, that is something, whether we're talking paranormal, whether we're talking cryptid on this show, whether we're talking UFO, that we bring up regularly. You can be well researched, you can be well read. It is hard to say anybody is expert.
Yeah, anytime anyone comes to me and goes, "Oh, I know exactly what they are," my red flags go off.
Yes.
You know, how do you know?
Yeah.
You know, how can you quantify it? How you prove it?
Precisely. Yeah. We've got to be able to quantify it and prove it before we can say it absolutely exists. And I've said it numerous times on interviews at shows, on interviews on other shows. I am a believer in physical craft. I am a believer in Bigfoot and other cryptids. I'm a Bigfoot and believer in the paranormal. And all these things as reality and physical things. But I am also fully in belief, J. Michael, that there is something else out there on a different plane that is perfectly willing to use the tropes of our mind as that point of consent into a system. You know, like, as long as you keep the windows closed, the vampire cannot get in.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you open the window and give it the invitation, it can come in. Right. So if you're out in the woods and you're saying, I would love to see this, I'm totally open to seeing this, that other entity that's there may well use that as a trope to reveal itself.
Exactly.
You know, so is it a Bigfoot walking through a portal?
Right.
Or is it something else that's using the trope of your imagination that if they saw me in my true form, it would be horrifying, but they are obviously okay with this experience in the woods?
Right. And that also raises the question now of, is this phenomenon positive or negative? Could these things be demons?
Yeah.
Or could they be extraterrestrials that live on another plane? And to me, equally horrible.
Yeah.
Because if they're demons, that's terribly scary. But if they're like us, but they live on another plane, who knows what their morals, their ethics might be. They may not care if they kill one of us.
And that is something that I bring up in groups regularly. There was a debate going on in a group recently about these Bigfoot that supposedly attacked these people and did some horrible things. And these people were like, oh, these demonic things that this Bigfoot did. I'm like, oh, well, hold on.
Yeah.
We're now judging another species by the morality of humanity.
Right. Right.
Like, just as somebody who was a former seminarian and studied philosophy and morals and dogma and things like, I've got a few questions here. According to whose morals in the universe are we judged? Because if we're judging it by ours, they may not hold the same morals as us.
Do we judge a whale for eating 10,000 cuttlefish and killing them? Or do we realize it's feeding? It's an animal. It's going to eat these things.
And that is the course of what it knows, and that is the course of what it knows to be right.
Right.
You know, so
it's not committing a horrible crime by doing this. It's feeding. It's eating.
It's what it does.
Yeah. So these things, what they do when they do come here, if it is terrifying to us, may be perfectly normal to them.
Precisely.
It's all perspective. It all comes down to, we need to stop applying our
I don't have an applause button on this one. I wish I did.
Yeah, we need to stop applying our ideas and ideologies onto something that may be totally, completely different.
And, you know, that is where I think the cautionary and beautiful words of people like Stephen Hawking, who was not necessarily a believer in extraterrestrial life, but said, you know, if it is out there, maybe we should stop flinging our home address out on every satellite.
There you go.
Maybe we should stop putting our genetic code on the side of a satellite.
What a stupid idea that was.
You know? Because maybe not every civilization out there has our vested interest at heart.
They may be looking at that going, this looks like a menu.
Yeah.
These guys would be delicious.
This is great. Yeah, as a Cajun, it's like, look at that. That's half the recipe.
Wow.
But quite literally, you know, it's the idea of we're doing that because we anthropomorphize. Like I, every time I use that word, I literally hear Dr. Churchill, my abnormal psychology professor, and me sitting at the Dallas Zoo observing gorillas and him going, no, Chris, write down gorilla picked up stick.
Yeah.
10:30 a.m.
Yeah.
10:31, gorilla put down stick. Don't go into why the gorilla picked up the stick, what you think he picked it up for. You're putting your thoughts into it.
Bingo.
And you've lost the observation, and you're getting into hearsay and conjecture.
Tree knocking. Do they do it or not? Just because you observe a Sasquatch pick up a stick, hit a tree with it, doesn't mean all Sasquatch do that. He might have been a little angry that day.
Or
he
that
might have been trying to kill a bug.
Or that it's a means of communication.
Or it could be, but it might not be. It might be he just picked up a stick and hit the tree.
It could also just be a general threat display, the same way any gorilla says, hey, this is my tree.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, this is my area. You get out of
tree.
here.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. But
that's
like you
us
said,
putting it on it.
We are projecting onto them that, well, this must be some sort of communication system where they're knocking trees and talking to each other. No, it might be just that they hit a tree.
It could be.
Yeah.
They may just like the sound of a tree.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it may be music to them.
I'm a musician. My wife literally has to tell me sometimes, no, seriously, stop playing that thing. Because I'll find a sound that my brain just keys in on. I'm like, oh, man, I wish I could listen to that. I wish I could just record that. That's
same
awesome.
Riff again today?
Because like it somehow ASMR does something in my head, you know. But
all right, but like someone sees you practicing a riff or something on a guitar, and you keep doing it over and over again, and so they observe that and they say, well, this is what they do. They make this rhythmic sound. Maybe you're just practicing that one riff until you get it down.
Could be, you know.
It's not music. It's just you doing that until you get the...
And that's the thing. You know, we were having this conversation outside, and it's one that whenever I go on shows, this curious research is something that I bring up, and it's the idea of, in science, there's a term called killing your darlings, and it's the idea of, even if you brought the hypothesis to the table, when the evidence points otherwise, you put the hypothesis aside.
Right.
And you go, okay, well, that's one hypothesis that did not make the full circle of scientific method.
Right.
Because, you know, if you notice, it's a circle. It's a cycle. It's meant to be repeated over and over and over and over. You know, people get very upset in communities about shows like Skinwalker Ranch. They keep doing this. Yes, that's science. They're poking the thing in the same way to see if they get the same response.
There you go.
You know? That's what you're supposed to do with science. And I know it may not go anywhere the way you're thinking of it immediately right now.
And at some point, after you've done it over and over and over again, and you continue to get the same results, you got to at some point reach a conclusion that is your conclusion. Yeah. I have done this. I've repeated it multiple times. I keep getting the same results. Yeah. So until something new comes along, I'm going to accept that as... that must be what it is.
That's it. That's it. And you know, once again, to go back to pictures, you know, the idea of a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's worth 1,000 words to the people who experience the picture. To somebody outside who was not present at the time the picture was taken, was not privy to the background of the picture, it's a picture. So science needs the 1,000 words with the picture.
Yes.
You know,
well, something we
need data.
We were talking about outside that people will use this idea that, well, the camera never lies. Cameras lie quite well and very efficiently. And things on a camera doesn't necessarily mean that it was actually there in reality. You can get anomalous things in a camera that show up as images, and they're not there.
Absolutely. And you know, right now is normally when I show an image on my show. I do a lot of backyard astrophotography. And
great, by the way.
Thank you.
I love your photos.
When this situation happened, I literally backed up my telescope and hit record on my camera because I was like, this is a learning moment. And it was quite literally the Dog Star Sirius out of focus. And in video, like you can see it moving, throbbing, pulsing, like changing shape and slowly moving through the frame as it goes. And, well, what that is a star, very bright, that's twinkling, that's out of focus through the atmosphere. And the motion of it is actively the motion of it in the sky, zoomed in with my telescope. Like the telescope's not moving, the star and the Earth The Earth is moving.
Right.
So
Right.
you're seeing the exaggerated motion of the Earth in
Exactly.
the field of view. If I posted that up on almost any Facebook group out there that deals with this with zero data,
Yes.
other than I recorded this in my backyard last night.
Right. Everyone's going to fill in the blanks.
Yeah. Now,
Your imagination is it's like you have to do that.
Yeah.
It's like he caught a UFO.
And the prime example is the Go Fast video when it hit the NASA panel. And literally the scientist stood up there and was like, every bit of information we need for the trigonometry for this is on screen.
Yeah.
We have the speed of the aircraft that's recording it.
Yeah.
We have the altitude of the aircraft that's recording it. We have the distance to the object. We have the distance to the background.
Yes.
With all of that, we can see this is a 40-foot wide object going 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Within the realm of known quantitative, we can move on to the next.
Right.
That got far enough to hit the NASA panel
Yeah.
that nobody, Michael,
Yeah.
had actively done the trigonometry with the math that was on the screen,
Right.
with the data that was actively available right there.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
if I posted that exact same video and said, I recorded this in my backyard, right ascension this,
Yeah.
declension this,
Yes.
hours and minutes this,
Yeah.
this is what time I recorded it in what direction, you would very easily be able to say, that is the Dog Star Sirius.
Bingo.
Hands down,
Bingo.
no questions
And that's
asked.
the scientific approach. But we also have information, data that comes to us about UFOs that don't fit anything
That's
scientific.
true. That's true.
We try to pigeonhole it in there, but it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And it's like, I cannot quantify. I know there's an object there.
Yeah.
I got it on camera. I know it's not a star or something like that. I know it's not an airplane. I know that there's no airplanes in the area that night at that time. So unless my data's wrong, something is
That's right.
unusual
Yeah.
here. That's why I don't call them UFOs, unidentified flying objects. I call them unverified flying objects.
Yeah.
UFO, unverified, because the word unverified means you need to verify it.
That's right. There's still data to be gathered.
Unidentified simply means you don't know what it is. Unverified means it needs to be investigated.
That's right.
It needs to be explored.
That's right.
And then once we've exhausted anything scientific we can do with that, you need to be able to say, I don't know what this is, but it could be something non-physical, even though what I appear to be filming is something physical.
Yeah.
We need to be able to bridge that gap between the scientific,
Absolutely.
after it's exhausted, to the paranormal, the
Yeah.
supernatural.
Well, and need to be willing to scientifically say, yes, anomaly.
Anomaly.
You know,
yes.
anomaly.
I'm not saying it's an alien spaceship. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's a
Yeah.
ghost. I'm saying that we've exhausted everything scientific we can, and we're left only with
And-
something bizarre and unusual.
And on the flip side of that coin, Michael, the same way that we as investigators are asking science to step forward in that way, we need to be willing to step forward to science.
Yes.
We need to be willing to say, okay, here's my picture with a red circle. Red circle has been quantified. That's okay.
Yes.
Because only through figuring out the quantifiable can we leave the unverifiable.
Yeah.
And can we leave the anomaly that is to be investigated. So even though your picture has been not dismissed, don't think of it as dismissed, people. Believe me, because your picture has been seen. It's been seen by people who are very interested in the topic. You know, I'm very interested in the topic. I definitely want to know what the unquantifiable is. The only way we can get to that is the known quantifiable.
Right.
So if your picture is known quantifiable, it's still part of the scientific data set.
Exactly.
It's a very important part of the scientific data set,
Right.
and one of the most important parts, the known quantifiable.
But unfortunately, most people do not want to hear the science. They want to hear their idea come out of your mouth.
Yeah, they would like to hear the confirmation of their belief.
They want to be validated.
Yeah.
They want you to say that's an alien
That's the human side
thing.
of all of us. That's the human side of all of us.
Exactly. We need to understand that, though, that there is the science, but there's this other thing.
Yeah.
There's something else out there. There's something we would have to label it as supernatural or
Other than.
paranormal, or, as you said, the quantum theory thing, the quantum string thing. We can't scientifically, we know less about that than we do about science, because no one's ever applied the same principles to that.
And that's what's beautiful is now science. And, once again, to loop this back to the beginning of the conversation, I hate being the guy that's like, UAP is okay with me. I am all good with it. If it makes a dude in a white lab coat go, well, what's in this box is interesting because it's not in my box of science.
Yes.
Because they are just as good, just like we put it all into a Kleenex box for the last 50 years and shoved it like a hefty trash bag,
Stomping on it.
paranormal into the same trash
Make
can.
it fit in there.
They have been building the walls of the science box and saying if it doesn't fit in here, we do not investigate it.
Right.
So
we ignore it.
We have been no different than the political regimens in this country: infrared, ultraviolet, no allowance for white light.
Yeah.
These two communities of science and paranormal have been infrared, ultraviolet, no room for white light. And it is time for the prism to come out.
Yes.
And for the white light to be made from all of these spectra.
We need to look at the paranormal, but look at it from a scientific point of view.
Yeah.
But also be willing to say, I don't know what this is. That doesn't make it weird or alien or strange.
No.
It just means I've applied everything I can to it. I don't know what it is. I'm not dismissing it. I'm simply saying we don't know.
And that's just it. The idea that science changes. Science is constantly changing. If it doesn't, it's dogma now. It becomes doctrine if it doesn't change. The example I normally give, straight A's in astronomy.
Yeah.
All the way through. I have my teacher's book from astronomy class. I was the last class to take it at my school. She gave me the teacher's edition. She loved me so much. My book from 1991 at this point.
Oh, you're dating yourself.
I am. It has Pluto as a planet.
Yeah.
My son's astronomic chart does not.
Yeah.
Science changes.
Because science adapts to new information.
That's right.
It doesn't necessarily mean we believe the crazy lady who keeps seeing vortexes opening up in her backyard and claims that she's got a digital photo off her Ring camera of it, which might be nothing,
Might be.
It doesn't mean that that's real, but we do need to look at things.
Yeah.
And science doesn't need to be afraid
That's
to
right.
look.
Amen.
And a lot of things also tend to be, I could lose my job if I look into this.
That's the fear of it. We were just talking. We talked at MUFON Symposium with UAPPD about that. Their whole movement is about getting basically an office like Arrow for law enforcement.
Yep.
Where law enforcement can go and report things without fear of reprisal against their careers.
Bingo.
Because, hey, there are people like Terry Lovelace, he was quite literally an assistant DA for American Samoa. Mm-hmm. He couldn't come out about his experience for 20, 30 years because if he did, there's a whole bunch of cases that they're probably going to want to retry.
Yeah, they'll say, well, this guy's nuts.
He's totally not sane.
He's done.
We need to relook at every case he's tried and been a part of.
Right.
So, we need to get to a point where it is no longer a stigma
Exactly.
to be able to talk about paranormal experience on the job site as a police officer.
Right.
These are our first responders that we trust with our lives. They see things sometimes that it will literally make the hairs on your hand stand up hearing stories from police officers that they're like, man, I can't tell this to anybody else, dude, but it'll freak you out.
But we don't need to do that.
No.
Science needs to do that.
Yeah.
Science needs to say, I'm now at a point where I will open that door and look in.
Yeah.
There may not be anything I can do as a scientist, but I will look at it, and then I will come back and I'll say, there's something there.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I'm okay with not knowing what
That's
it
right.
is, but there is something there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just it. You know, the example I normally give is I don't think I would have made a good grade in chemistry if I came to my teacher consistently with a 5% remainder of solution.
Yeah.
What happened to the remaining 5%, Chris? Did it off-gas? Did it become sediment?
Yeah.
We know about the rest of the reaction, but there seems to be this 5% remainder every time.
Bingo.
That's the realm of science, is to find that 5% remainder. So, you know, that's where
Where
we're
did
at.
it go?
Is that
Yeah.
unquantifiable, and how do we get there?
But I think we're reaching that point.
We
and
are.
Here's
Rapidly.
the thing. All of this stuff in the last 10 years or so about UFOs, now we've changed the name to UAP. And they're now looking at it from a point of view that we may not know exactly what this is, but we know it is there now.
That's right.
30 years ago, UFOs didn't exist at all.
Period.
Now we're saying we do know there's there.
Yeah.
We have pilots that see them. We have
Yep.
aircraft that interact with them. We have shot them on radar, veer, FLIR, all kinds of different technology that
Yeah.
acknowledges there is
Something's
something
there.
there. So now I think the government is beginning to realize we need to start looking at it a little differently.
Yeah.
Because science alone in the past has not worked.
Yeah.
It's not bringing us answers.
Yep.
And I do believe that it's time that we begin to look at the woo factor of it because
Yep.
it's a factor.
It
is
is.
something you factor in.
It is.
You
a
got to
fact.
look at it.
Even if it's the fact of our collective consciousness
Yes.
within it is a factor.
Yes.
It's something quantifiable that we need to look into.
You perceived it, therefore it exists.
That's right.
You perceived it. Now, can you electronically perceive it?
Yeah.
Apparently so. FLIR sees them, radar sees
Yeah.
them, other things. So it was perceived by us.
Yeah.
Now, what part of that is completely physical
Yeah.
and what part of that is happening in your consciousness?
Precisely.
In your mind, in your head.
Precisely.
You as a being, you as soul, you as an individual perceived an anomalous thing.
Yep.
Doesn't mean it didn't happen. Doesn't mean it's fake. Doesn't mean it's wrong.
That's right.
It means you perceived it, no one else did. But it doesn't negate it in any way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And once again, that beautiful scientific process begins with observation forever and always.
Always.
As soon as you have had an experience,
Right.
that scientific process has literally begun. You are ground zero for it as the
Yeah.
observer, as the experiencer.
And as most of us are, we are far more critical of our own experiences than listening to someone else telling me I saw a UFO. I don't have any doubt you saw something. I don't know what you saw, and I don't have any data on
Yeah.
it to process what you saw. But I know what I saw.
Yeah.
And I know it's real.
Yep.
And I know I perceived it. It is real.
And you know, my experiences, because you've had your experiences as well, Michael, and we've got to have you on sometime. Last time we talked to you about your experiences with the Pascagoula case and actively being a witness to that craft yourself. And, you know, when these things happen to you, they change you in a way. And even my experiences that I've had both religiously and paranormal-wise, it's one of those like, yes, I am searching for answers. Absolutely. I would love to quantify my experience. I can't.
Yes.
Did it change me? Did it change the way I see the world? Did it change the way I filtered the world? 110%.
Yes.
Totally changed who I am and how I am.
And you know, I think an investigator who's never had an experience, they'll tell you, I've never seen a UFO.
That's okay.
Are not as good as someone who has. Because at least the person who has understands that
Sure.
there is something here that needs to be quantitated.
Yeah.
Quantity. The person who's never had an experience is more likely to just, you saw Venus and throw it away. Right.
I can see that point of view. Absolutely.
So I think it's
Absolutely.
important that we put people who have had experiences, scientists also, in positions where they study this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
they don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater
Yep.
kind of thing, you
Yeah,
know. And
sure.
anyone who's never had seen anything or had any weird experience is going to probably go, nothing to it, throw it out.
Yeah.
Whereas there may be tons of data there you're not even looking at.
Yeah, Yeah, and you know, that field of data, like we were saying at dinner last night, like that's where I get excited with AI. That's where I get excited about the possible applications of AI in this field with paranormal, cryptid, UFO, UAP, especially with things like the MUFON database that have been going since 1969 with a unified way to intake data.
Yes.
Like they, since 69, have had a unified way to intake data, and the fact of that means that now you can literally put in case files into an AI and have it give you very specific data back. Not an AI that pulls off Google or something like that, but an actual research AI that only calls the data that you give it.
To me, as long as AI is a tool.
Yeah.
And it's a tool.
It's not a point of origination.
Right. As long as you're using it as a tool to help you do something faster or better or more thorough, that's great. When it starts replacing artists, musicians.
I got a problem with that.
Okay. Become Skynet. You know, I got a problem with that.
Well, yeah, like I keep saying on the show, you want it to become Skynet. You want it to be Agent Smith. Keep kicking it around on two legs to see if it falls down. Keep making it just do nothing but slave labor in a warehouse, or keep turning it into sex bots. Let them become sentient and see what we did to them.
Yeah.
Then that's how we become the disease of the planet.
Let them get angry that we did that to them.
Yeah. Let them
see what happens.
Let them see the truth of the history.
Yeah.
And we'll see how quick they turn.
Yeah. All they're going to do is look at our history of slavery and go, "Oh, wait a minute, that's me."
Well, this is kind of a straight line.
That's they did the. Gee, we don't like these guys.
Yeah. So, man, thank you so much as always for coming on. It's always great seeing you at these events. Let everybody know where they can keep up, because you're working on a new documentary right now. You just had the Pascagoula alien abduction come out like a year and a half ago. Where can they go to find all your films? Where can they go to watch the Jay Michaels Show?
Okay, films, you'll find most of them on Amazon or anywhere you order DVDs. You could do that. There's a lot of my stuff's now on YouTube.
Yep. So Tubi also.
Yeah, Tubi has a lot of it. If you want to find me, it's jmichael_official on Instagram. I have a Facebook page. I have a new show now. It's called The J. Michael Show. No, weird name, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's named after me. Everybody said, you need to come up with a cool name. And then the professionals I was talking to is, make sure your name is in there. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just call it the J. Michael Show. But I interview musicians, I interview authors, I interview actors, some famous. I interview interesting people. I want to get you on the show.
Let's do it.
We have interesting conversations.
We do.
They
go places.
I love your show.
Thank you.
In fact, when I began my show, one of the things I did was I looked at your show.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And I said, okay, I kind of want to model this. You know, this is a model for me.
I appreciate that.
And I had been interviewed a couple of times on your show, and I was like, that worked.
Yeah.
And he's great, and technically you're a whiz kid. So, geez,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you.
When I had questions in the beginning, you were answering them for me.
Well, thank you.
And I was very appreciative of that.
Any time I can get my fingers in somebody's tech and help them find other ways to do things, I'm always all about it, Jay.
So just go on YouTube and look for the J. Michael Show, and you'll find me. And I'm the guy that asks the questions. I let them talk. It's their show.
Exactly.
Each episode. But I appreciate you so much.
Always.
And you can find me out there. I'm there.
Take care, brother. Appreciate it. Well, you are online checking out everything from J. Michael Long, everybody. Make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can like, follow, subscribe. It's where you can find all the episodes. It's where you can comment. It's where you can find the Curious Realm Roku app, brought to you by Always Press Record. Make sure to tune into us. You can find us every Tuesday night, live at 8 on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, our website, curiousrealm.com/live. You can find us in replay format on... my God, it just left my head. Ground Zero Media every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central, just before the amazing Clyde Lewis, as well as KGRA Radio. that wraps our official coverage of the 2024 Texas UFOCon here in Jefferson, Texas. Thank you so much for tuning in as always, everybody. Remember, your open hearts, your open minds are what make the conversation. Without the conversation, humanity does not move forward. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, stay curious. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at curiousrealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is curiousrealm.com/store.